my name is Katie Pesha with KP Consulting Group. Thank you for joining us for our webinar, Social Media 101. We're joined by Patrick Powers, who's the founder and principal of Powers Digital. He's a frequent collaborator on KP Consulting projects, and we're very grateful to have him joining us to be able to share his insights and expertise on this particular topic. We hope you enjoy the information that is presented, and we invite you to join us for future webinars that become available in the future. Thank you again so much, and God bless you. With another advanced look at what we discuss in that webinar. So without further ado, I'd like to begin today's presentation. We are going to cover why social media is an important challenge to leverage in your parish or ministry's communications plan, how to set a strategy for social media, and how to set goals, objectives, and measurements, and how these are different. Plus, we'll take a live look in Facebook as a main social media platform, and we'll look at ensuring your account is set up correctly and leveraging the algorithm to learn about signals that affect newsfeed content rankings. So we'll take you into Facebook Live and walk you through how to do some of that. So as we open our presentation, we'd like to share a quote from Pope Francis. On the occasion of the 48th World Communications Day in 2014, he said, "The revolution taking place in communications, media, and in information technologies represents a great and thrilling challenge. May we respond to that challenge with fresh energy and imagination as we seek to share with others the beauty of God." And so we have a challenge that's being given to us here by Pope Francis just 8 years ago. So it's even more so relevant today. So I'll turn it to Patrick. Again, thank you for being with us today to share your expertise. You're quite a gift to the church. I just ask you to help walk us through how to meet this thrilling challenge from Pope Francis.
Well, thank you so much, Katie, and thank you for inviting me to be here. And thank you all for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning. Before we get started, I did just kind of want to lay out where we'll be going today. So this is Social Media 101, and one of the greatest challenges in putting together any webinar presentation such as this is being able to meet you where you are. Some people may use Facebook from a personal perspective, and that is certainly one way in which we can use it. What our intent today is to review how you might use it on behalf of your ministry or organization, which is a little bit different. Near the end of this presentation, I do have time built in that we can walk through very specific situations and scenarios. If you're having a hard time logging in, or you don't seem to find where you're able to load video, or how do I determine how many people are looking at my content, or what type of posts are doing better than others, I will be in a live Facebook environment. At that point in time, I do encourage you to participate in this webinar and to ask those specific questions. There are no bad questions in this webinar. If you have something that you are getting stuck with or have concerns about or want to know, the likelihood is someone else on this webinar also shares that same question. So please do not be shy. I will not consider it rude if you interrupt and raise your hand. Katie Pesha will be monitoring the chat, and so she will not be shy in interrupting me for those questions as they come along. So let's begin with setting a strategy. Anytime that I do any consulting with any ministry or organization, the first question I always ask is, okay, well, what do you want to do with this particular platform? Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all of these platforms kind of come and go, but they need to serve a role if you're going to be in that space on behalf of your ministry. And before even setting up an account, before creating that page or group, I challenge people to ask these questions. Even if you have a page and group set up today, it can be helpful to review these questions and jotting down very simply what your answers might be. So the first question is, who do we want to reach? I'm going to give you a spoiler alert here. If your answer is everyone, then this is not the platform for you. You will not reach every Facebook user out there. You might not even reach every person living within 500 miles. You might not even reach everyone who is a parishioner of your parish if that's how you're utilizing Facebook. Having a strategy and an idea of how you want to use it starts with this question of who are we trying to talk to? And following that, we ask, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to engage them? Do we want to inform them? Do we want them making donations? Do we want them RSVPing for events? Do we want them utilizing Facebook to reserve space in the parish hall? Having that knowledge helps set the direction for how we're going to use these very specific platforms. The third question is, okay, well, if we know who we're trying to reach and what we're trying to do, what channels are appropriate? Not all social media is created equal. Some do better jobs at producing live video. Some do better jobs at presenting images and visuals. Some do better jobs at promoting 30-second dance videos. All of these platforms have a very specific niche and a very specific purpose. So understanding what specific channel are we trying to engage on. The one we'll focus on today really is the elephant in the room, in that Facebook is so pervasive in our society today, and there are so many users. This is more often than not the primary channel which I consult ministries and organizations on their use of. The fourth question is, how will we get it done? This is a resource question. So there's probably a lot of volunteers on the call, or people who have full-time jobs within the church, or people who have part-time jobs. Generating content and engaging with our audiences is not a task that takes zero time. So I want you to be realistic, and let's say the executive director or the pastor or whoever says, well, let's get on Facebook, let's get engaged, let's really ramp this up. Okay, well, this is an additional responsibility, and it does take time. And we need to be realistic about the time we're going to spend there and what we're trying to accomplish. Which leads to our last question, which is, how will we know that it worked? Right? Just because we are putting pictures up there, or we are commenting on things, or we are posting things or posting events, is that working for us? What are those metrics that we will look at to say, you know what, when we set our strategy, we said we were going to do X, and we can look at measurements of Y to determine that we are moving in the right direction. So in setting that strategy, the examples that I'm going to walk through today are on behalf of a parish. So in my role, I do volunteer my time with my local parish. It's St. Michael the Archangel in Shrewsbury, if anyone is in St. Louis and familiar with that. And so a lot of the examples will be for that specific parish. But what I'm hoping is that you'll be able to recognize what I'm doing here and to say, okay, here's how I might be able to apply it to the ministry or organization where I am today. So, all right. So here is just a sample of our goals. So the goals for our particular parish Facebook page are: we want to encourage respect, dialogue, and honest relationships. We want to evangelize community members who follow our page, and we want to inform parishioners and the community of in-person events. Notice there is no goal of, we want to raise money for our particular parish through Facebook. Absolutely, we want to raise money, but we're not recognizing Facebook as the primary means to do that. Absolutely, do we want to increase attendance at Mass? Yes, but maybe Facebook isn't the direct avenue to do that. And so we have very specific goals for what we want to do in that space. To reach those goals, we set objectives. And these objectives are very concrete. They involve numbers, they involve timeframes. That makes it very specific, so that when I meet with the pastor and he says, oh, are we moving toward our goals? We can say yes, or we can say no. but we know what we are working toward. And so I have examples of, we want to increase the number of people who like our page to 500 people. And we're going to give ourselves a year in which to do that. We're going to reach more than 1,000 people per week. We're going to engage with 100 people per week. And that could mean responding to a comment or answering a question. But all of this, because Facebook tracks all of this, is something that we can monitor and watch as time goes on. And the last piece is, okay, well, how are we going to measure this? So we're going to look at things like page likes, so the total number of people who like and follow our content. We're going to look at how many people we reached, and we're going to look at the likes, the comments, and the shares that come through on the posts that we create. All of this is measurable, and all of this data is available in Facebook. So how are we going to do that? Well, we have a couple of different strategies in place to say, okay, if those are our goals, we want to evangelize those who are following our page, and we want to promote honest dialogue and relationships. We're going to do a couple of different things. One, we're going to kind of serve as the social bulletin board, right? And this is kind of what we agreed upon. And we said, we're going to relay news, announcements, activities of the parish. When we have a fish fry, when we have Stations of the Cross, we're going to promote and share all of that type of content. We're going to present a strong and visual representation that encourages sharing among Facebook users. We'll talk a lot about images in this particular platform, specifically images and video, because those do so well in this environment. If anyone utilizes Facebook from a personal perspective, you know, just as well as anyone else, you know, the text and the copy that people post inside of Facebook does not grab you or does not stop you from scrolling as much as dramatic visuals or images. We also want to promote quality content from related pages to build community among area Catholics. And then our goal is to post original content at least 3 times per week to build what I'm calling our Facebook affinity score. And we'll get into that a little bit more. In addition to setting that strategy, we also have to know a little bit about ourselves and come to an agreement on the rules that we will follow. One of the challenges in operating social media on behalf of the church is that, you know, a lot of people are volunteers, and we can't just hand out the keys to these incredibly important communication channels to anyone without understanding there are going to be some ground rules at play. And so I do encourage people, and you can, I was going to say steal these, but let's not steal, let's borrow these, and you can share them with your or an organization or adapt them to apply. But anyone that is set as an administrator on a particular account, we do ask them to follow specific guiding principles. One is to be responsible. These are individual interactions. These are not to be considered official parish communications, but we want you to be responsible from a personal level, that if you were to post something or share something, you are the one responsible for that post or that shared content. We want you to be smart. We want you to remember that what you write is public, even if it is in a closed group, even if you think that it is a private direct message. I always tell people to assume that everything that you post or share onto Facebook or any social media platform can become public at some point in time. And so we ask them to be smart and to be respectful of our community. We ask that you respect the privacy of others. So on behalf of your ministry or organization, you know, in our case, our parish, we don't post people's individual names without permission. You know, we don't reveal addresses. We don't put out phone numbers of individual parishioners. Not everyone is on social media, and that is okay. And so we have to acknowledge that and respect the privacy of others. We want to be respectful, and that our views appropriately and are respectful of the church and its teachings. This is probably an obvious one, but we always ask people to be reminded of that. And we ask them to use good judgment. Even when you're using social media personally, the comments of our community may be viewed as a reflection of our community. So even if you are using social media and you are talking to your friends, your neighbors, your kids, your grandkids, it can always be seen as a reflection of our community. So we just ask people to use good judgment. So these
Patrick?
are our guide. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Oh,
Katie.
sorry. I have a question for
Yeah.
you that has come in from Laura. I think it's Shudik. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. She's asking that if there's a Facebook account for a parish that's not authorized for setup, how can she investigate the origin or admin on the account?
Great question. This happens all the time. I'll tell you what, Katie, if you wouldn't mind, maybe let's put a pin on that one. When we get to the live environment, that'll be the first thing that we do is we'll showcase, okay, let's say a page is not managed by us, but we need to get control of it. How are we going to do that? So, all right, good question. All right, so when we talk about social media, primarily we're going to talk about Facebook because it is so large and it is such a behemoth and it is so pervasive in our society today. At its core, Facebook is a social networking website where users can post comments, share photos, post news, and other things that they find interesting on the web. A couple of notes about Facebook. Nearly 30% of all Facebook users are between the ages of 25 and 34. That is the most common age demographic. So if you say, well, Facebook is for young people, which I guess 34 is still younger than me, you would be correct. But if you are looking to connect with 18, 21-year-olds, they are not as active on this particular platform. This is a global statistic. What I will say is that within the church, what we have found is that that number skews much higher in terms of the age of people who are utilizing that particular platform. And I'll show some of those numbers as well. The highest traffic time for Facebook users is 1 to 3 p.m. So if you are promoting something on behalf of your ministry or organization and you're up at 4 a.m. because you're working hard and you think, I'm going to post it right now, well, it's not as likely to be seen as so much as it would be if you were to post during some of these higher traffic times. And then Facebook does see an 18% higher engagement on Thursdays and Fridays for whatever reason. Now, these are kind of global statistics and how people utilize Facebook. Inside of your very specific Facebook environment, if you are operating on behalf of a ministry or organization, you'll be able to get much more granular about this data. And you'll be able to see more specifically when are people that I'm trying to connect with, when are they most active and who are they? And what I'll share is just an example here. So this is demographic data that is available inside of Facebook. And so if you were to say, yes, Facebook's global statistics would suggest that the 25 to 34-year-old market is the most active. What I would say is that that might be true globally. It is not true for our specific organization. This is the demographic data of the users following St. Michael's Catholic Church in Shrewsbury. And so you will see the numbers skew in two directions. One, much older, 35 to 44 is a large group, but that over 65 plus is the largest percentage of people who are following the page. The second chart is people who are engaged with the page. Just because someone follows you does not mean that they are engaging with you and that they are liking things or commenting things or asking questions or going through the photos or watching your videos. That skews even older. And in both cases, it also skews very heavily toward women. So if you are writing posts and you are sharing content, you know, if you think, oh, well, Facebook is just for young people and I'm trying to talk and communicate in a way, my 22-year-old nephew is going to communicate, well, then you're going to be missing the boat. This audience is primarily older. It does skew female. What I'll do is I'll show you where to find this information when you are inside of Facebook. So this is all provided through a page. But one of the things that I do want to do is just stop and pause for a moment just to make sure everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say page, when I say profile, when I say group. You may have heard or you may participate in any number of these particular, avenues in which people interact with Facebook. The first, and this is the way that everyone has to get in, is you have to have a profile. Profiles very specifically are for people. My profile is called Patrick Powers. Facebook is very clear in its terms of service that one profile per person. So if you have, well, this is my personal account where I talk with my brother and my sister and my kids and my grandkids. And then I have a separate account in which I manage on behalf of my ministry or organization. Facebook is very clear in that, no, this is not what they want you to do. I have seen ministries and organizations lose an administrator because Facebook says, wait, this is not a personal profile. This is being shared, and this is not the way in which we want these to be set up. Personal profiles are just that. They are personal in that you have full control over the privacy settings of your profile. So often I hear the question of, oh, well, I don't want my personal information that I share on Facebook with my brother in Omaha. We make jokes about Cardinals baseball all day. Well, I don't need that tied to St. Michael Parish where I'm posting on behalf of the church. Facebook makes that delineation between those profiles and those ministries and organizations so that it doesn't get shared. In addition, I can then go into my personal profile and really lock down even more than by default who gets to see my content. If you were to try to become my friend in the Facebook sense, not in the real world sense, but in the Facebook sense, you wouldn't see a lot of content from me. I keep it pretty tight and pretty locked down in terms of who gets to see what. On behalf of a ministry or organization, there are kind of two paths which you can take. You can create a page or you can create a group. There are pluses and minuses to doing both. And I'm not here to say one is better than the other than, there are just different features that come with one or the other. A page is often a public space that allows you to grow your audience organically. It's out there. People can search for it. People can find it. People don't even have to be a Facebook user to access a page. You do have some control over what gets posted or shared, and I'll show some examples of what to do there. People can message you via a page. You get demographic information and insights into who your audience is and what posts are popular and what content is doing well. And a page does allow you to run advertising. I do run some ad campaigns on behalf of various Catholic organizations. In order to run those campaigns, you are required to have a formal Facebook page. Alternatively, I have seen ministries or organizations set up Facebook groups. Now, groups are great. You can control the rules and the settings, and you can set your group to be one of three things. It can be an open group. Anybody can join. You can let everyone and anyone in. It can be a secret group where it's not listed. You can't search for it. You can't find it. The only way in is if you were to share a very specific link to that group or specifically invited an individual into that group. Or a group can be closed, meaning people will have to request permission into that group. Now, oftentimes people will set a very simple security question, How long have you been a parishioner, or who's the executive director of this organization? That will be kind of the gatekeeper. Or sometimes they set up more difficult review processes. That group can be closed only to those particular members. A closed group can still be searched for and found. So for example, you could search for the St. Michael's Men's Club, you might find the group, but you would have to request to join that particular group. Groups are often better for engagement and communication if it is a set number of people, because Facebook very recently has moved toward rewarding that within their algorithm. Facebook groups, the one hiccup there is that they do not allow for ads. So what we'll spend most of our time talking about today, however, is going to be Facebook pages. More often than not, on behalf of a ministry or organization, if you are publishing content in this space, it's going to be through a page. And a page kind of looks like this when you are logged in. There's going to be a long list of menu items down the left-hand column. And we'll kind of walk through those items that I see as kind of the most important for people doing the kind of work that we're doing here. The first is that as a page, you do have the ability to run advertising campaigns. And so in that ad center, this is often the easiest and quickest place to build ads for your particular ministry or organization. Now, if you would love to join us for Facebook 201, we'll delve deeper into buying ads and utilizing Facebook Business Manager and Ads Manager, which is very much an advanced topic. But if you're just looking to do a quick thing or to boost a particular event or to reach and target some people within your organization, the Ad Center here is an easy to set up advertising platform for your page. The Ad Center will provide you data on reach, impressions, as well as conversions. Conversions are going to be things like, we want people to like our page, or we want people to visit our website, or we want people to RSVP for an event. Those are all sample conversions that you can add to an ad so that you can optimize toward those conversions. So that's the Ad Center is one spot that I always point to. The second is going to be in events. Now, for a ministry or an organization, events is a great tool and feature, and that creating in-person Facebook Live or even external live events, such as this webinar, can all be done by utilizing this events feature. You can get head counts for events, and events show up a little bit differently within that particular page than they would otherwise, whether it's a regular post or not. You do get better turnouts by keeping your guests engaged, and people can have conversations about that event very specifically in that targeted space. Most recently, you can now also connect and sell tickets. There is a connection to Eventbrite through events. So if you were utilizing Eventbrite and you wanted to promote it through events, you can tie those two together so that people can pay directly through that as well. All right, moving down the left-hand column, if we started with Ad Center and we looked at events, you notice we've skipped a couple of things, and that's okay. Those aren't going to be places that I see people going to most of the time. But the most prominent one that I log into on a regular basis is going to be Insights. Insights is going to be that analytic dashboard where you can track user behavior and post performance. So let's say you shared a post about the fish fry, and then you came back and said, well, here's Stations of the Cross that we want to talk about, and oh, here's some photos from our auction. And you want to go and see, okay, which one of those posts perform better? What is it that our audience wants to see and what resonates with them? Insights will provide you that information. You can see who likes your page, who is engaged based on age, gender, and location. Insights will also recommend competitor pages to watch and to track. So if there are other organizations, maybe there are other nonprofit organizations, other church organizations that I don't want to say compete is not the right word, but it will start to suggest to you, here are other pages that are posting similar content, sharing similar things, and how people are engaging with those specific pages. And then the last thing I just wanted to showcase here before we delve too far into the live is settings. So, and we'll show you more specifically in settings, but this is where you will set whether your page can be tagged or not. So whether someone can build a link within Facebook to your organization. I always recommend that you allow that to happen so that if I were to share what our archdiocese was doing or what the cathedral was doing, I could tag them and they would see that content, and content would flow between those two much more easily. The settings is also where we will moderate specific words on controversial topics to keep them from being used on our page. So one of the questions I always get is, well, what if some people say bad things, right? And in the Catholic Church, there are certain topics or discussions that maybe we don't want this to be a space for those conversations. So we can set, hey, if someone types in these specific words, we don't want those posts to be seen. We can turn on a profanity filter, which hides or does not allow then any post that would include profanity to be posted or shared to the page. And we could add page rules for specific users. So whether that's someone who's going to advertise on our behalf or share content on our behalf, we can set those roles and those levels of permission. So, okay. Before we go into live, I did want to kind of share a little bit about what good content is. And so creating posts is going to be your primary reason to be inside of Facebook. The button is pretty big. It's pretty clear. Even on a mobile device, if you go navigate to a page that you manage, it's going to be very clear that you can create a post. What I flagged here is you can do so much more than just load a photograph or just type in text. You can add buttons to raise money or get calls. You can check into a location. You can add feelings or activities to enhance, the richness of the content that you are sharing. When you do that, all of that content gets sent to Facebook. It is then Facebook, it's up to them 100% who, where, when, and how that content is going to be seen. It all comes down to the algorithm. Now, the algorithm is just a fancy calculation that Facebook uses to determine that, what Katie sees might be different than what Liz sees, might be different than what Patrick sees. Even if we follow all of the same organizations, even if the three of us are friends on Facebook, our Facebook news feeds are not going to be the same. Facebook in 2018 updated this algorithm to really highlight closer connections, friends and family members within your particular news feed. And you may have seen that shift happen if you are utilizing Facebook personally. What that does mean, though, is ministries and organizations and brands that are representing pages have to work that much harder to generate good content to get it to be seen. These are all signals that affect newsfeed content, when it's posted, how much time people spend on that post, how are people engaged with it, are people commenting or liking. The more engaging a post is, the further that it will go. If you post a particular piece of content and it's kind of a dud and no one's liking it, no one's sharing it, no one's commenting on it, it's not going to take off. Conversely, if you post content that is a beautiful image and people like it and they're commenting on it and they're sharing it, it will go further. So, all right. I'm going to skip through some of this stuff just because I recognize I want to be cognizant of time, and I want to get us into a live environment where we can start looking at some of this information. So before I do that, just a couple of notes on what makes a good post. 1, visual, visual, visual. 2, visual, visual, and visual. 3, visual, visual. Compelling visuals so much are the content that gets shared. The Facebook will even tell you they perform 10 times better than plain text. So just typing, a paragraph of text into Facebook is never going to be as engaging or travel as far as a compelling visual image. Calls to action, encouraging people to do something, to attend something, to comment on something, also increases engagement. And videos just play well on Facebook. What makes a bad post or common pitfalls that I see is 1, not completing the about information about your ministry or organization. One of the foundations that Facebook will use in determining who gets to see your stuff is you first letting them know who you are and what you are about. It's probably no spoiler to you, but my newsfeed gets dominated by Catholic organizations. Facebook probably has keyed in on the fact that I follow those organizations and I like that content, so I see a lot more of it. The only way they know that your organization might fit into that mix is if you tell them and complete your about section. The second is just infrequent posting. I get people who post something and it really didn't do anything. So we kind of waited a couple months and then we went back on, we posted something else. That really didn't do anything. Like it or not, Facebook is a publicly traded company that makes money the more time people spend in that platform. And that goes for ministries and organizations. So the investment that you put in time, effort, and energy is going to be matched by engagement, shares, and community building. And then lastly, a pitfall I see is, in general, text in images is kind of a bad thing. Facebook doesn't like when you overlay text and, maybe we have our fish fry coming up and we say fish fry, we put all the details in this image and we try to share the image. Facebook does not like that as so much as an image without that text. So just be mindful of that. So without further ado, let's go to Facebook. And if I can do this correctly, I think this can work. Okay. So this is a slight risk I'm taking, right? Anytime I go live into a Facebook environment, things could pop up and embarrass me. But I think it's worth that risk that we're going to take here today.
No judgment, Patrick. No judgment.
Thank you, Katie. Katie's probably going to post something and it's going to pop up in my feed here. But what we're looking at is a live back end of the Facebook page. And you can see this left-hand side down here, the menu items. So before I delve into this, what we will do is, I think Laura asked a question about St. Robert Bellarmine, that there was a Facebook account that was maybe running a page or that wasn't authorized, and she has no idea how to investigate the origin or admin on the account. Can you please advise? Yes. So I'm going to search for St. Robert Bellarmine. And maybe this is your church and maybe not. It's okay. The process is going to be the same. So let's maybe find some pages that would be.
Okay. I've unmuted. Is that okay?
You're unmuted. Yes.
Okay.
Laura, oh, this is your question. Is this you?
This is my question. So we did give permission for quilters to go on and do a live raffle presentation once a month.
Okay.
But it looks like there's a St. Robert Bellarmine. I'm on my phone. There's a St. Robert Bellarmine church that the website is incorrect. There was no permission given to start the site. And I see people tagging in it, so they show up in the photos. I started to look into how to get this removed, and I'm just hitting a brick wall.
Yeah. If you're seeing my screen, or any one of these, the page in question?
So I'm not seeing on yours what I'm seeing on my phone. The one on my phone is showing a couple embracing themselves, just like maybe a married couple.
Okay.
And that's changed just recently. That was not the picture that was up there about a month ago.
Sure. So
somebody's
someone is actively maintaining and managing this page.
Right. Right.
So one of the things that I would suggest that you do is, and we don't have to do it on this call, but I'll show kind of where you'll go and what you'll do, is to navigate to that particular page. And on a desktop, there's going to be 3 little buttons here that allow you to find support or report the page. And you can either relate this as false information, this isn't who it is. You can report it as incorrect information. You can say, this is our intellectual property, or this belongs to us, this is our logo. And this is where you would report that type of activity. That is, one way in which I would begin to resolve this particular situation. Another way would be to message this very specific page, is to say, in this case, I can message this page directly and send a note, and I can very kindly or very directly say, I am a representative of this brand. Can you please add me as an administrator or transfer ownership to me? More often than not, that I found is the most effective way. But sometimes you get people that have gone rogue or that refuse to relinquish ownership, in which case, then you tell the teacher, right? You report that particular page to Facebook. So looks like Beth had a question. Are you still seeing more activity and value from Facebook versus Instagram for the average Catholic parish or organization? And where might you look to determine the right platform for our message and audience? Great question, Beth. So I will say this in my own personal experience, that yes, the massive year-over-year growth that Facebook had been showing is slowing, if not plateauing. I was impressed how much that rhymed. But in recent years, yes, the growth of Facebook has slowed, if not plateaued. And Instagram really has been on the rise. Now, for the average Catholic parish, if you are limited by your time, effort, and energy and how much you can spend doing social media on behalf of a parish, I think that there is still more bang for your buck in Facebook. Now, having said that, I think it also needs to be part of that conversation. How much and how active is the volunteer or the professional staff member? How comfortable are they in that platform? If you have someone who arrives at your parish and they are Instagram experts, and I am not going to be the one to tell them, no, I need you to do all this stuff in Facebook. More often than not, the people who are on those platforms personally and engage with them and use them on a regular basis, they find great creative ways to utilize those channels. So if someone is an Instagram savant and wants to do social media on behalf of your ministry or organization, I say stick with stick with Instagram. But if it is, we're starting from scratch and we're just trying to engage the most people that we can to share our news and information, it's still going to be Facebook. So, all right. I'm going to go back here to St. Michael. Oh, there I was at the top of the page. Just to show kind of where and how we would do some things. The primary thing that you're going to do most often inside of Facebook is to create a post. And entering text is great, but I do encourage you to utilize some of this additional options for people. And that photos, connecting with phone calls is the place to add it in here. Additionally, we'll go through some of these other items, but it looks like Joe has a question. It was my understanding the Archdiocese discouraged receiving money through Facebook. They prefer direct payments to the church itself. Is this saying this is now a secure form of payment? Yes, it is a secure form of payment, but no, you are still correct in that the Archdiocese doesn't want you to collect money inside of Facebook. There are a couple of different ways in which you can collect money in Facebook, but getting it out of Facebook into the place where it needs to be, whether that is a church bank account or in the hands of a ministry or organization, can be difficult. The way that I see around that is to provide direct links inside of Facebook to those secure online payment systems that the church prefers. So if we want to, and we did this during the pandemic, promote online giving, saying, well, you're not coming physically to church, but you can still give on a weekly basis. We provide a link directly to our Sunday Visitor, which is the online payment process for our particular church. We're not taking that money inside of Facebook. So, all right. Holly has a question. Looking at insights, it's showing One Seed Church as one to watch with 190,000 likes. When I visit their page, I don't understand why they rank so high. Not many likes on their posts. There could be several factors for this, Holly. I think the question boils down to, why does a page get a ton of people to follow it if not a lot of people are engaging with their content? There could be a couple of reasons for this. When Facebook first opened up to brands and organizations, this was 10 plus years ago, it was really easy to build an audience. And this could be a situation where that audience was built up a long time ago. And maybe they don't post as much anymore and they don't get as likes anymore, but those people haven't unfollowed the page. It's a legacy audience that they're holding on to. That could be one. Option two could be they are advertising to build the number of likes. The inside of the ad center, and this might be a great opportunity to showcase in here. So inside of the ad center for this particular page, I can go and create an ad, pretty quickly, pretty easily. And it's going to allow me to create an ad, and I can select what I want this ad to do. So maybe I want this ad to get more page likes. So for as low as $5, $10, more often than not, I'm spending much more than that in this space, but you can buy those likes to get people to like your page and to follow your page and to get a subscription to your information. You see all of these different conversions. Why Facebook wants to know this information is they will then optimize those ads and serve them to people that they believe to be likely receptive to that particular ad. So, okay, I'm going to close out of here. Yes, I want to leave there. All right, do we have any additional questions? I'm happy to continue to poke around here, but I want to be cognizant of time and of your time. And any specific questions that you would have, feel free to add them to the chat or to raise your hand. So, what about being limited with Pics? So I'm not sure I follow your question about what would be the limitation with Pics. Sometimes there are limitations if the images are not big enough that they will not load. Oh, not having permission to use Pics publicly that relate to your agency. Yes, this is a larger issue than Facebook, but there are images out there, right? If you just Googled something, you can find images of St. Michael Church. If you were to grab that image, you do not necessarily have the rights to that image. Now, there are other platforms that are better at monitoring this than others, but Facebook does have some coding and stipulations in place that it is a copyrighted image, that it may not allow you to share that photograph. Well, what I would encourage you to do is to be respectful and to be courteous to those people who invested the time, effort, and energy to take that photograph. Maybe they hired some professional, that we do not necessarily have the right then to reutilize that photograph. The follow-up was, or having a small pool of pics and there's a tendency to reuse the same ones. Yes, that does happen. The only way around that, boring. Yes, that is boring when images are continually reused for the same brand or organization. And this comes down to a resourcing issue. This is why when setting a strategy, one of the questions that I strongly urge you to answer is, how are we going to get this done? If our answer is, well, we're just going to rely on the same 5 images, that is going to get pretty boring pretty quickly. But if we have, a handful of volunteers that, even if it's just taking a photograph from their phone at an event, in the parish hall, at a game, and sharing those images, does wonders to increase the wealth of images that you have available. So.
And Patrick, I want to add too, we have a comment from Fernanda, and I was going to share the same insight. There's a resource called Canva, Canva, that has a lot of stock photography options. Stock isn't an initial first choice if you have your own photography that you can use, but there are a lot of options out there that you could utilize for new posts that you're creating and be able to share those. It's a free resource and maybe something to consider. Fernanda said that they had a great response using Canva and they were able to add 600 people on Instagram alone.
Yeah. Yep. Now, I think Canva is a great tool and a great resource. And in fact, we utilized it to build this presentation. What I will just note about Canva is, if every church organization is utilizing Canva and you type in church into the search bar and everyone has the same image over time, Canva in and of itself is not an infinite repository of dynamic images that will speak to your audience, but it can be a great resource to get started. The question, is there an average Facebook ad budget for Catholic churches? You are right, because you in part answered your question, Holly, in that it is going to be variable. I will give you an example, and I will tell you, for our local parish, we spend $0 on Facebook, and we rely on everything to happen organically. But there are other Catholic organizations that I've spent as little as $50 a month, or even $50 one time promoting an event. And I've spent I work for a Catholic healthcare organization, and I've spent thousands of dollars that in this particular environment. It all is going to come back to, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you want to do? And what do you want that end result to be? So the beauty of Facebook is, yes, you could spend as little as $5. And you could just test it and see what happens. And if you get a great response, it might be a reason to ask for additional funds or to come up with ways in which you might be able to increase the funding there. Suppose a church has no digital strategy at present, no online presence at all. What is the approximate number of leadership hours needed to get a social media strategy up and running? Approximate number of hours per week for a volunteer or staff member to maintain that basic presence. If you are starting from nothing, developing that strategy, I would encourage you to invest, half a day, gathering that information, determining what you're trying to do, what you want to do, just to set that strategy. Now, I've spent hours more than that developing strategies for clients, but if you're starting from scratch, let's say, hey, let's get a group together and let's meet for 2 or 3 hours, and we will answer all of these questions that we've posed today, and we will set the strategy. Moving forward, social media can be done as little as 10 minutes a day, or if you're starting from scratch, I would say if you could spend 3 hours a week inside of Facebook or any social media platform, maybe it's a half hour for 6 days a week, or it's an hour 3 days a week, building that continuity. And once you are in there and familiar with it and how it works, it gets easier, in that, oh, I know this will be a good post, and boom, 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 I can click, click, click and send it, and it's up there, and that time can be decreased. So, all right.
It looks like Carol has her hand up.
Yep.
We want to jump to Carol. It's 10:59. So go ahead, Carol. Hello?
Carol.
Maybe not. Well, Carol, we're not hearing you. So maybe if you could type your question in the chat and we can keep moving with, I think Lisa's question is up next. Some brands grow followers by incentivizing people to follow or like in exchange for something, % off, access to something, contest entry, not recommending. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to caution about that. Is Facebook is very clear in their terms of service that you cannot give anything away, or there can be no exchange of anything for content on Facebook. And that includes a like, a comment, or a share. Now, you see it happen all the time. No one's going to Facebook jail because of it. But I do want you to be aware that within their terms of service, they are clear that you shouldn't really be doing that. So. Yep.
Carol's question has arrived. What is the liability of the posting people's photos who do not wish their picture to be posted ever?
Yeah, I am not an attorney, but I don't think it's good. If they want to maintain their privacy, we need to be respectful of that privacy. So.
And I know at the Archdiocesan level, there is a form that they have to be able to allow for photos to be used and shared. And that's followed very strictly for schools, especially with minors. So
Yep.
I would check with your local archdiocese or diocese if they have a resource like that for you to have those on file. We do still have some questions coming in, so I'm going to keep us going. I know we're at 11, so I will say thank you for those who joined if your time limits you and you have to leave, but let's get through the rest of these questions if we can. We have a question. Can an agency set up a Facebook account as an agency and not an individual so that if staffing changes, the editor owner permissions transfer?
Great question. And my answer to that is join us for Social Media 201, and we will talk about Facebook Business Manager, which is a level of management that does allow you to create kind of a sense of an agency with multiple levels of permission. If you aren't able to make that, you can set up multiple administrators, multiple individuals, so that there is a continuity of management, even if someone leaves or moves on.
I'm noticing we have a follow-up question about providing a link to the Archdiocese of St. Louis form for photo use permissions. And I am not sure that that is available publicly on the website, but I do notice that Lisa Shea is with us and is part of the communications office for the Archdiocese and could likely provide that as a resource. Lisa, I'm putting you on the spot, but do you have access to that form that you may be able to share that? We lost her photo. So, oh, there she is.
I'm here.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, we can probably provide that. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, I mean, to clarify, if someone's a member of your parish and they're at a public parish event, you might be covered for something like that. And you can, or you could even post signage at an event like that. And that's much easier than trying to track people down and get them to sign a photo release. But if you want a photo release sample, if I don't have one from the Arch, I have one from Catholic Charities. So you can, I'll put my email in the chat if anybody wants to reach out for that.
And Lisa, I know that we had a form there when I worked at the Archdiocese of St. Louis. So and I believe I still signed that for my children's school at St. Joseph. So I think it's still an active form. So hopefully it is available. Okay. Well, it looks like, so Lisa's shared her email. Thank you. I'm sorry again to put you on the spot like that. But again, we're just a little past 11 here. So I don't want to keep us on much longer. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude our time together. Patrick, thank you so much for investing the time to be able to share this this knowledge with us. It's so important and so valuable. So we really appreciate you taking the time to share some of your wisdom with us.
Yeah.
Thank you again all for joining us today. We'll send a note as soon as the recording is available on our website. And we do encourage you to share that with others. We're hoping that this information can be utilized to its fullest extent. So please don't hesitate to share it with those that you feel this would be helpful for in their ministry. As a communications team serving parishes, ministries, schools, we do truly believe that the future of our Catholic faith is in embracing co-responsible leadership and equipping the laity with the right tools to be in the world, but not of the world. So as part of our commitment to co-responsibility, we do want to help make as many resources available as possible to you at KP Consulting. Again, I'll remind you, this is the first of 4 First Friday webinars that we are offering this year, so far, at least, that we have scheduled. So please do note the dates of May 6th, October 7th, and November 4th. You will receive a link in our follow-up email from this webinar with the registration link for those future webinars. And then they'll also be available to register for on our website at katiepesha.com/events. We also encourage you to check out our blog series, which features highlights and resources in relation to church communications, marketing, and strategic planning. And through our blog, you can meet some members of our team who have been with us through the course of this session. If you've seen Liz Henning's name, Patrick, that you've been hearing from today, Beth Laver, I think, had to drop, Ann Steffens, Claire Clausen, Steve Mamanella. We have a really amazing team of individuals, and they are guest contributors on our blog, and they all bring a really unique angle to church communications, marketing, and planning. We also do plan to send out a survey in follow-up to this webinar to find out from you what other topics might you like to hear about. So please do engage in that survey and let us know what would be helpful for you in your ministry as it relates to church communications. And finally, I'd be remiss to not say, please do follow us on Facebook at KP Consulting. We also have an Instagram page, kp.consulting group. So please do follow us and stay in touch. And thank you once again for spending this hour with us. We're very grateful for your time, and we wish you all the best in your ministry throughout the Archdiocese and the country. So thank you so much,
Everyone.
And we will sign off until next time. Thank you so much. Take care.